What's up? What's up, y'all?
Hello, America.
Welcome to episode 9 of the Motive Zone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Tiffany Clark. I am your host, and I am with Kevin Lassiter.
Hello, your co-host, policy analyst.
That's right. And we are the Motive Zone.
Welcome, America.
So I just wanted to let you know, we had a little break last Wednesday, and that's mainly because we decided that we wanted to host episode 8 at the first annual Cara Festa out in District Heights. And that was hosted by the vice mayor of District Heights, Jonathan Medlock. And so we couldn't do, I think we did one interview live, but we couldn't do all of the interviews live. You know, signal was kind of wonky or whatever, but we did several interviews, and we posted it on YouTube, and we posted it on the page, you know, the Motive Zone Instagram and Facebook page.
Yes.
And we just, we decided to try something a little different. And speaking of different, we are in September.
Happy New Month, as
Happy
they say.
New Month.
Happy New Month.
Happy New Month. And we are in September. We're trying some new things. So bear with us as we kind of get our bearings and figure out the whole podcasting thing. But we have some segments this episode. We have some segments now. We moving on up.
We are a real talk show, guys.
We are a real talk show, you guys. And so
show.
we are moving on up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we want to just kind of start off right. So we gave it a little recap. Last week we interviewed Vice Mayor Jonathan Medlock.
Smashing young man.
Yes, he is great. He's doing great things in the community of District Heights, Maryland. And that's in Prince George's County, Maryland. And he actually helped create and implement the first annual Cara Festa. And so what that was a Caribbean music and music festival, arts festival out in District Heights, Maryland. First of its kind in the area. It was so great.
It was beautiful.
And it was last Saturday, by the way, if you were wondering what day it was. It was last Saturday, and we had a blast.
I explained to both Tiffany and the vice mayor, I said, listen, there's not one single negative energy, not one vibe of negative energy. It was just the beauty of love and togetherness and spirituality was just all over the scene.
That's right, and African-American culture.
Amen to that.
You know, Caribbean culture. We had, I think it was like 28 or 29 different Caribbean culture, different cultures
coming together
to make this happen. We had food, we had art, we had jewelry,
music.
Man, the music, the Caribbean music.
The Caribbean music was on point.
It was so good. I even had my grandmother with me. I had my little cousin with me.
They are beautiful people.
Yeah, so we had a good time. And then who else? We interviewed Judge Sharon Kelsey.
We did interview Judge Sharon Kelsey.
And out of District Heights.
Yes. And we interviewed Congresswoman Hopeful.
Yes.
No, wait. We're getting old, everyone.
Listen,
it's okay.
Please don't judge us.
Don't
judge.
judge.
We interviewed. I'm sorry. Okay, first of all, let's go back. She deserves
her own introduction because she's a fierce woman.
Okay, so we interviewed retired Colonel Sheila Bryant from the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yes.
And she's running for Congress in 2020 for Maryland, and which is a big deal because we do not have any women or women of color in Congress from Maryland.
Right.
And we've never had that. So that's a pretty big deal. And so we did a really great interview with her.
Yes.
And she just let us know like what she was, she was standing for and the things that she was trying to bring to the forefront as she ran for Congress.
Common theme that I found between the Vice Mayor, Judge Kelsey, and Congresswoman Bryant was perseverance. We asked Judge Kelsey to speak on her beginnings, how she got started in law, what inspired her. And come to find out, I don't mean to put all of her business out there, but she had some struggles with the LSAT. And I took the LSAT. That's a very difficult test.
Right.
Struggles 2 times over. She also had financial challenges when it came down to finishing law school. But one thing that she wanted young people to realize, no matter where you come from, no matter who you are, your skin color, you can make it. If you want it bad enough, you can push forward. Same thing with Congresswoman Hopeful Bryant. She said, just persevere and go through. She went through the
Absolutely.
Marine Corps. She came out. She got involved with politics, and now she's running as the first woman of color, hopefully to take a seat in Congress for
For
the state of Maryland. That comes with its own challenges, and same with Vice Mayor. And in fact, Vice Mayor left us with a good word from above. Persevere. He wants to see the next generation take his spot. He doesn't want to be one of those old people that just sits in office and holds power. He wants to break doors for other young people to step up. So those are the common themes that I heard. Stepping up, perseverance. It was just beautiful.
It was quite beautiful. And why that is important is because, as you know, dealing with, trying to find your place in the world and going to school and trying to assert yourself and take certain tests creates a lot of anxiety.
A lot of fear.
A lot of fear, which, creates a lot of anxiety. And so basically and let me just backtrack for a second. And the reason why let's just go back for one quick second, you guys.
Of course.
The reason why we wanted to have a conversation with these people is because we have been stressing throughout the first 7 episodes about how important it is for us to vote at the local level.
Yeah.
Okay. So we met a judge, we met a congresswoman, and we met a mayor.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And so the reason why it's so important for us to have these conversations with these people and potentially vote them into office is because it is at the local level that we as regular human beings have the most power. We hold the most power. Yeah. And so it's important for us to have these conversations, get to know them, see what they're really about, see if we kind of jive with whatever they're talking about, and make a decision. That way, if they do advance to the highest level of office, which is President of the United States, we have used our influence the entire time to ensure that we are getting our voices heard and our issues taken care of all the way up the pyramid.
One thing that I love that Judge Kelsey said is that everyday decisions at the local level affect your life more so than what happens at the federal level. So it's important to keep your mind open, keep your eyes open, and do your research. She went into a little she went into a little explanation of what happens when we put in local judges. I'm guilty of this too. Call out your sin. We just blindly vote because they don't have a particular party. They're listed alphabetically.
Because we don't know what to do. We become fearful. We become anxious.
Right.
And
we're just trying to get through the polls.
We're trying to get through the process. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Do our due diligence, right?
Exactly. And we go down the line, and a person can just go and pay $50 with no experience as judge, but with a law degree and $50 and put themselves up there and could be elected judge. But you don't know what policies they want to put in place.
That's right.
That can affect everything from incarceration to mental health. So it's important that we do our research. We do our due diligence before we even go to the polls, and do your research on every candidate that's up there in your particular region. It will affect your daily life, and you'll thank yourself much later.
Yeah, and so getting back to the topic of anxiety, and we were saying how, taking tests and even choosing who your candidates are going to be, it creates a sense of anxiety.
Yeah.
And so today's episode, we are focusing on facing anxiety.
Yes.
And so the motive of the episode is inspired by a quote by Dan Miller. He is an author, and he has a psychoanalysis background.
Yeah.
But anyway, the quote is, "You don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you."
Powerful.
Yeah. So that's the motive of the day, guys. You don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you. And here's why that's important. Because I'm just going to give you a little story. So one day, as you all know, I started Purposeful Motives as a life coach, and I have a blog on Instagram. That's the Purposeful Motives blog. And I post inspirational things every day and the motive of the day. And, people begin to notice those things. And so I had an associate of mine. I was out and about just doing my, day party thing, Right? And so
I love her.
And somebody was like, yeah, I noticed you be posted on the gram, all of this positivity, but is that how you really feel? Like, are you really that positive? Are you really happy? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I understood where it came from. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna get back to that, but I was like, yes, I am happy, and I like posting positive energy onto the gram.
Isn't it funny though? Like people, this is why I really take to spirituality. People who aren't grounded don't understand joy from within.
I think that's right. Here's the thing. I think most of us are not grounded. Okay. Yeah. I think that most of us understand anxiety, stress, depression, pain, but we don't know how to measure happiness because a lot of us haven't seen it.
A lot of us don't trust it.
A lot of us don't trust it.
Don't trust
right?
it.
We're skeptical. We're like, okay, you should, like, and I'm guilty of that. Like, I can say that I've seen, you coming to work, on a Monday, and somebody's happy-go-lucky. Good morning, Tiffany. You like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you so happy on a Monday? Yeah. Okay, in the winter time,
in the morning,
and it's dark outside. Like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
And so I get the sentiments. Like, you question whether or not someone is genuinely at where they're at. But here's the thing. There's two things that I have to say about that. A few things, actually. I'm going to say 3 things.
Go ahead, girl.
Go ahead. Okay, number one, at the moment when he asked me that question, I was not offended. Okay. I understood where it came from because I've had those similar thoughts.
Yeah.
And there was a point in time where people who were actually so positive and energetic and, happy, it kind of annoyed me. Like, nobody's happy like that all the fucking time. Okay? Yeah. But here's the thing. I'm not pretending to be happy all the time.
Yeah.
Okay? People don't get to see when I'm not so happy because I don't have a platform for that.
Yeah.
But that's why we're having this conversation. Okay? Number 2, I don't know if I remember 2 and 3. Wait, okay. So, happy all the time. Platform. And then
I'm using my magic to build.
He's using his magic, but y'all know me. I forget stuff sometimes. Where was I going with that? Anyway, we'll get back to it. The point is that I wasn't offended by it, okay? Yes. And at the end of the day, I feel like, like I said, I was one of those skeptical human beings that was just kind of like, okay, people are not happy all the time. But here's the thing. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
You don't have to be happy all the time. But I think at the time, I did question myself after this is a question that has kind of played on my mind since he's asked this question. And I'm not going to lie because just so we're clear, that's going into the topic that we're talking about, anxiety, there are triggers. And that was kind of a trigger for me because I realized that, okay, number 2 and maybe 3 is that, I had to figure out what happiness meant for me. Right? I had to figure out what my threshold was because there was no measuring stick. Like, I didn't grow up knowing what happiness particularly was because if you grew up the way that I grew up, lost most of your parents at a young age and you just saw a lot of things as you grew up. You don't really know what happiness is, but you know a lot about pain. Right. You know a lot about struggle. You know a lot about perseverance and resilience and, all of that stuff, but you don't really know a lot about what happiness is supposed to look like. Yeah. It's supposed to look like, okay, every time I see somebody that I know I'm smiling and I'm joking and I could talk to you and just make you laugh.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, or is it, do I need to really assess what that means to me? And so at the time, I'm at a fortunate place in my life that I've spent a lot of time in isolation. I've spent a lot of time in thought. I spent a lot of time in meditation. And I was able to sit back and actually decide for myself what happiness looked like.
So, in other words, you found your ground.
I found my ground.
Right.
And I wasn't measuring it by somebody else's standard.
That's the key right there.
Okay. That wasn't measuring it because, and also I realized that I didn't need to know what it looked like for anyone else.
Right.
I just knew that at the time I felt happier than I've ever felt in my life.
It kind of reminds me of what a lot of people speak about concerning faith. A lot of people say that, you have to you can't balance yourself with or compare yourself or compare your inner beliefs with that of other people. You have to search within your own heart to see what best works for you. And you'll realize that you can find your own grounding, your own belief system. It just makes sense because it's designed for you.
Right.
So your happiness, like your faith, is designed for you.
Right. And so another thing, and I think this may have been 3 out of the 2, is that well, maybe not. But anyway, it's just, you don't have to be happy. You don't have to you can have it's like the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the time you're good, you're content, you're like, God is good, I feel great, I have no complaints, there's nothing going on. I have little stresses here and there, but at the end of the day, there's more good in my day on a daily basis than there is bad. And so that was my measure. If I can at the end of the day say, okay, my bills are paid, I have food in my, my belly and in my fridge, I have clothes on my back, and I feel loved and supported, then okay, I'm good. Like I have no complaints. I have a job. I have a roof over my head. I'm a bare minimum kind of gal. You know what I'm saying? That kind of brings us into our next segment, real talk, right? Real talk.
Real talk.
Real talk.
I'm trying to sound like a New Yorker.
Real talk. For me, I'm at the bare minimum of the threshold. I don't need a whole lot in order to feel completely happy, but I feel like there was a time where I couldn't even mentally wrap my mind around just being satisfied with what I had, and so that is the way that it is for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? You have to really be able to take a step back and say, okay, am I good?
Right.
And if I'm not good, what can I do about it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But also acknowledging the fact that when you are dealing with anxiety, when you are face to face with it, like you don't have to always be good. Like there are times where you have your anxiety kind of, what's the word that I'm in check. You have your anxiety in check because I'm the type of person that, like I said earlier, what my associate asked me kind of played in the background of my mind until today. Like, damn, am I really happy? Like, let me count the ways. Like, what do I have going on here?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But, there are times when you have it in check. And so, but there are also times where it's too far in check. Where you walk around saying, okay, I'm good. Everything's good. Okay, I'm not going to let this stress me out. And then you end up kind of suppressing your energy as opposed to acknowledging it and really really dealing with whatever it is that may have made you feel some type of way. Like you don't have to be so far in check in order to feel good about being good.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you can still deal with some shit and still be good.
We'll get a little bit into this. I just want to pull this out because it touches what I'm thinking in my head. The face or the reality of anxiety is not what society perceives it to be.
Yes, thank you, Kevin.
So Prince Harry, a lot of people may know this, may not know this. If you're in love with the royal family,
if you know who Prince Harry is,
well, he is. I forget his official title, but we've always known him as Prince Harry. He married Meghan Markle. He's one of the royals of Great Britain.
Right.
He's like he's not third in line anymore. He's like 4th or 5th because his brother William had children.
That's right.
But he's a member of the royal family in the United Kingdom. America, former British colony. We still keep up with those things.
There we go.
There we go. We still keep up with those things.
Thank you for the history lesson, Kevin.
You're welcome. Our colonial ancestors would not be happy with me right now, but that's okay. But in April of 2017, Prince William was on a podcast and he was interviewed and he stated that, hey, CNN actually reported this. He wasn't on a CNN sponsored podcast, but they brought this out and then it hit the New York Times. But he stated that, hey, for a very long time since my mother's death, I suppressed my feelings, and it really started to happen in my 20s. Remember, I don't know if you remember this, Tiffany, or not, but I do remember reading the headlines, and he was always in the headlines as the troubled prince.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, wearing a Nazi uniform to one of like a costume party, and always with a different girl, or he was high. What was going on?
And then he joined the military and all that.
Joined the military. What he stated, ever since his mother passed away, he suppressed all of the anger that he felt, all of the sadness that he felt. And then, on top of that, you're a member of the royal family. So you read the headlines of conspiracy, of what may have happened to her, of what was happening to your parents, and you didn't know, or you may have felt it, because children are very intuitive. You may have felt it, and then what you saw or heard around the halls of the palace or around the grounds where your father lived confirmed it. And then as you grew older and older, it's just puberty is hitting, and you're trying to find your place, and your life is in the limelight, and you're missing your mom. All of these things were just suppressed, and he wasn't well mentally. And then what happened, he acted out. But now that's why both he and Meghan Markle have made it their business, along with his brother and Kate Middleton, have made it their business to address mental health issues for the very first time in the United Kingdom. It goes back to what you were talking about. A lot of Black people do this, and I know this from experience.
Right.
We hide because we feel like we shouldn't feel this way. We're stronger than that. All we need, no offense to, because I'm a Christian myself, no offense, but all we need is Jesus, or all we need is prayer, or we just need to get over it. We don't go and we don't sit down and reflect on what's going on in our lives in order to take care of ourselves.
But see, here's the thing, Kevin. Not only Black people, but people in general, like, not only do they not take time out of their, take time out to really deal with the issues, but people, they go from relationship to relationship. They do a whole bunch of things to distract.
Try to find stuff.
Yes, to distract and kind of deviate from the issues there. And here's what I know. I've done that, right? I'm gonna give you an example of that. It's because excuse me. Like I said, if you are, and I'm sorry, did I interrupt your thought?
No, of course. Continue.
Okay. Y'all know I love me some Kevin, right? I don't want to interrupt his thought. But like, I know for a fact that I've done that. And I didn't intend to do that. Like, I was like I said, I had the conversation with my homie and I was like, yeah, I'm great. Like, what are you talking about? But there are times where certain things trigger me. I'm a very sensitive human. Okay. So there are things that may trigger me and I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to meditate it away. And yes, it works. Meditation works. So I'm not saying that it doesn't work. Meditation works. But
I had to put that as a health coach.
Meditation works. But at the same time, like, you can meditate and not particularly deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can meditate and you can feel good for the moment, but are you really taking a deep dive into whatever it is that's bothering you? Are you addressing it?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because here's why. So for me, like Kevin was saying, that society paints the picture that anxiety looks a certain way.
Yeah.
And anxiety does not look a certain way. No. I have struggled with anxiety for a good portion of my life, right? And so for me, sometimes anxiety comes out in my dreams. Okay. And so I think that I'm good. And then one day I'll have a dream. So one day, I'm going to give you an example and I'm trying to speed through it or whatever. But one day I had a dream that I was signed up for a potluck. Okay. And, by a friend of mine. And so I was signed up for the potluck and initially I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to cook this healthy meal and whatever. And I was like, okay, good. I made the decision. But then the more I thought about it, because I am a thinker and I allow things to play on my mind constantly, like things will constantly like, you know what I'm saying? Right. Like constantly replay itself. And so I know the experience. Yeah, it became more, instead of just a friendly potluck among, colleagues, it became a competition with myself. I wasn't even in competition with anybody else. I kept thinking to myself, oh my God, maybe I'm not cooking enough. People are not going to understand this meal. I need to add something to it. And I went through this whole stress in my dream, literally. I'm in my dream. I went through this whole stress where I was having this panic. And so I was thinking, okay, well, I need to do something. I need to create something. And so it was getting close to the date, and I think it was like the next day. Now, the grocery stores weren't going. Now, I thought that I had to have my meal ready by 9:00 because I was signed up to be the first person in the potluck to present a meal. So I'm thinking, oh God, I need to be, ready by 9:00, but the grocery stores don't open until 9:00. So I had thought that, okay, well, I had been in such a panic because anxiety can stifle you. I had been in such a panic that I couldn't even act. I couldn't even create. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to the grocery store and buy something. Or if I couldn't buy anything, I was gonna order a meal from a restaurant. But both of the restaurant and the grocery store didn't open until 9. Okay, fast forward. The grocery store ended up opening a little earlier, so I went into the grocery store, but I was so stifled I couldn't buy anything. So then a girlfriend of mine who was in my dream, she was like, "Hey, listen, relax yourself. Okay, if you can't get it done, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Like you can, people can eat what you made, or you can postpone your meal to another time, or you don't have to do anything at all." And so it made me feel slightly relaxed, but I was still anxious. Like, no, I need to finish what I started, and I need to make sure that I get it done. Okay, and so basically, I was putting this unrealistic expectation on myself to accomplish something that I was clearly overly stressing in my mind. Right. So I get to the event, and it turns out that I was actually starting at a later time because the times got mixed up, and I had more time. And so the person who told me that was my grandmother in my dream. Oh. And she's like, "Listen, times got mixed up. I'm actually going first, and you have more time or whatever." And she was like,
"It's like wisdom was coming and speaking to you."
She was like, "There's always more time."
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There's always more time. Don't worry about it. And so at that point, I began to relax, and I was able to say, okay, well, I'm not worried about it anymore. Yeah. But here's the thing: like when we place unrealistic expectations on ourselves, sometimes we think that we don't have any time to complete anything. And so I think in my dream was telling me that I have the tendency to overly analyze a situation, or overly stress situation. I mean, Kevin, because when we did the Carafesta, I was like crazy.
Well, I think you wanted to get things set up. You wanted to get things recorded. Plus, it was hot, so the heat, it was disrespectfully hot. So the heat wasn't adding to it.
It was
the heat
wasn't
hot. making things better.
It was a little hot.
But I saw your energy, and your energy was like, it was tense.
Yeah, because I wanted to get it done, and I wanted to get it done right. And so I think that the point that I was trying to make, you guys, is that real talk, sometimes we place unrealistic expectations on ourselves, or we allow the expectations of other people to trigger us in a way that causes anxiety and puts our minds into like overdrive, and we're overly thinking about certain things. Like I may have subconsciously overthought the fact that maybe I'm not happy. Yeah. And I created a scenario that put me in a position to feel unhappy and anxious. And so it manifested in my dream.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So sometimes we can suppress our thoughts and our anxiousness and not deal with it to the point that we experience the anxiousness in our dreams, and then it causes anxiety in our waking life.
I'm so glad that you brought that point, and I hope you didn't find that I was.
I hope that I wasn't all over the place, you guys.
You were not. You were clear and succinct. I hope you didn't think that I was rude, or in America, I hope you don't think that I was rude. I pulled out my notes.
No, go for it.
Because what you experienced is what the leading experts at Johns Hopkins University have been stating concerning depression.
I love him. Bring it all together, Kevin.
Yes. So this is what your very dreams are what 40% of adults from 18 to 50, they say, experience on a daily basis. What happens, you have trigger moments. And it can happen, sometimes it can happen as young as 13. Most of the time it's 18, because at 18 you've entered into the world, either the workforce or academia or military. And I'll get into why that's important in a second. And this more so happens in Western countries, and I'll explain why. But it can be something that triggers you, something that someone says, If you're 13, it may be the science fair. How old are you? Well, you're. I'm not gonna say.
It's okay.
She's in her 30s, y'all.
I'm mid-30s, you guys.
She's
Whoop,
in her
whoop.
30s. Whoop whoop. Grown ass people. She's in her 30s. So you're dealing with life. You're dealing with rent. You're dealing with your grandmother. You're dealing with family. You're dealing with career. It could be any moment that can trigger a stress. It doesn't mean that you're going overboard. It means that you are internalizing so much pressure on yourself that it comes out in different ways. It can come out in dreams. It can come out in breakdown. Prince Harry talked about it all the time when he showed up in the Nazi uniform at the at like some costume party in his early 20s. He was having a mental breakdown. It just looked different. People who knew him was like, this is not Harry. But it came out different. For me, I've suffered from depression and anxiety for a very long time. For me, it seems as if my mind is clouded and I can't get focused. I jump from, Tiffany has not experienced this side of me, but I have. I jump from place to place to place to place to place. I got to do this, and then the next second I got to do this, and the next second I got to do this. And I'm centering around and I can't focus my mind, and so nothing gets done, and then I start to break down. I start to look sad. Like that's when you know something's wrong.
Yeah, that's real talk.
Yeah, we all have natural looks, I guess, and my natural look is happy. I think maybe because I love people, or I don't know what that is.
So what would you say, Kevin, is your what is one of your major triggers as for anxiety?
So I'm glad that you say that. The leading scientists.
No, for you.
For
Kevin.
me, that's what I'm saying. Leading scientists believe that it is our work environment, that it is we've created in the industrial world and the Western world, and particularly in the United States, we created a stressful environment from social media and from competition in the workplace. So right now, one of the main things that makes me really happy, I'm going to sound really old like a dad, is a good work environment. One moment, I'm not going to call out the place where I worked out of respect, but I was working and it was so toxic. Like I would sit down in a meeting and a person would walk in and just blatantly look at me and shake his head and sit on the other side of the table. Not like, oh, I'm searching for a seat. Like, I don't want to sit next to him, and I know the difference. They would hold their nose as I walk by, or I could be sitting in my cubicle and they not know that I'm there, but they're talking like negatively. And it created such a toxic environment where I couldn't think, I couldn't be myself, and it hurt. And so I compared myself to their work standards, their work level. And when I didn't get things done or didn't get things done perfectly, that's when I felt the most anxious. Does it matter that the speed that I was moving, my work was effective? It just mattered that they finished before I did. So that means that they look more complete, more done, more better. It happens all the time if I'm at church or if I'm at home or someone compares me to another person. And nothing against like certain family members.
And so that's like external expectations. So you were trying to live up to their expectations.
Exactly.
And that was your biggest stressor.
That was my biggest trigger.
And for me, it was living up to my own expectations. And I think that because I'm trying to master because we talked about this recently about not being so judgy. And so I know that I can be, I work on my judginess, you guys, but I can be judgy. And so I judge myself the harshest.
Yeah.
I am my biggest critic. And so for me, it's living up to my own expectations. And so it's making sure that I do everything according to the way that I feel like it should look if I were outside of me and having to, deal with me. And it's mainly, like I said, it's mainly me in my own head. It's mainly me saying, yo, Tiffany, are you really happy?
Yeah.
Are you really executing? Are you really providing a good service? Are you genuine about the love that you're showing? Are you really effective and efficient in whatever it is that you're doing? Like, it's really me just holding myself to a standard
an external standard
that is kind of immeasurable, right? Like you really have no standard to really hold yourself against for real. It's just kind of like something that you've created for yourself. Well, for me anyway. Like I didn't have like we talked about, like, I didn't have like, the I guess the background of people saying, hey, you need to be at this level. But I've said, okay, well, Tiffany, it doesn't matter what people think about you. You need to be, you need to do this at this level.
Right.
Okay.
Another trigger that's related, that's very related, is social media. When we have social media friends, and when they post pictures.
Right. And that kind of goes into our next segment, new news.
Yes.
New news. You were talking about, like you said, there are certain triggers. So like you said, I'm sorry to cut you off because I wanted to talk about what you just said.
Yeah.
But there's an article that you sent to me that was particularly saying that millennials have a higher, they're the most stressed generation. So we as millennials, us folk right here,
from 25 to 30,
are the most stressed generation. And I found that so interesting. And I feel like it's because like what you were just getting ready to say.
Yes, it is. So it can be social media. What's happening with social media? If you see or you're comparing yourself to your friends, your colleagues, they could be in vacation in Italy, but you don't know how long they saved to get to Italy,
or if they even have money on that trip.
Exactly. Or if all their money was spent traveling and they have nothing and they're just enjoying the scenery. Meanwhile, you're building your bank account, you have your own home and your own car handling your business, but you're comparing yourself because you're not traveling as your friends and colleagues. I think with our generation,
I kind of feel like millennials get a bad rap. I feel like I don't feel like it's just centered around millennials. Like all of us are in the social media technology age.
Right.
And so I feel like all of us are kind of having to adjust to this whole being exposed to what everybody else is doing, what everybody else is thinking, what's going on in everybody else's life. And so we are just hyper exposed to everything. And so it kind of plays on our mind and triggers us in many different ways that sometimes we're not even conscious about.
And we don't even know the full story, right?
Correct.
We're so focused on what we see on a screen, rather it be the computer or the telephone screen, but you don't even know the full story about that person and what they're going through.
Correct.
Because I know, just dealing, coming from Caribbean and Southern American roots, we don't share a lot with the outside world. What's in the house stays in the house.
Oh, right.
So you're not going to catch me in my sad moments posting it on social media.
That's how we were taught, right? That's how we were taught. Our parents taught us, what happens in this house stays in this house. And so it becomes not it's not I don't want to say that it's not a positive thing. Of course, it's an issue of being private,
right,
versus being
putting your business out there.
No, being private versus being isolated. And being because there's a different thing. It's a different thing from keeping, making sure that your personal household is, but it's also a different thing like when you are experiencing things like what you were saying about Prince Harry and all them, how we don't talk about the issues that need to be spoken about.
Right.
Okay. That is why, like you said, in the Black community, we don't do therapy. We don't talk about anxiety. There's no such thing as depression. What is abuse?
Right.
Okay. Because we're taught to keep that in the household. We were not taught to expose that information because then it's like, okay, well, the whole world can now judge.
Exactly.
But it's not about judging. It's about gaining knowledge and sharing information and saying, yes, me too.
Right, exactly.
And not pertaining to the Me Too, but you know what I mean.
Yes, I go through it too.
I'm experiencing this as well.
And when people post or when people write about their experiences, if they're anything like me or my personality, if they write about who they are, they're not going to expose that side of their life until they get into a more intimate setting.
Correct.
So it works in a lot of multiple ways.
And sometimes they never find that intimate setting to feel comfortable enough to talk.
So meanwhile, you're sitting at home and you're going through what you're going through and you're watching your friends and you're wondering how they're living this wonderful, successful life, but they're going through the same thing you're going through.
Right.
So it really matters that you all come and find a space where you can talk, work it out.
Because like we said, the motive of this episode was to basically let you all know that facing anxiety, the way that society says that we are supposed to face it, the way that society says that it's supposed to look, is not going to look the same for all of us. Like I said, sometimes my anxiety manifests in my dreams. And then you know what happens? Like I had that dream that I told you all about. And what happened is for the next few days, I experienced so much anxiety that I went into, like, I woke up with anxiety. I went to bed with anxiety. I went into work with anxiety. I interacted with whoever with, with anxiety, like feeling like this weight in my chest. Like, I don't know what is happening here because there's nothing in my waking life that is saying I need to pay attention.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that dream triggered me in a way that said, Tiffany, there is something that you need to pay attention to. There is some level of expectation that you are putting on yourself that you really need to slow down and say no. Take a step back.
One thing that you're saying, I want to read this. One thing that you're saying, there's what I see is a shift in society. Okay, so some experts say that humans in Western societies are becoming more psychologically sensitive because there is less pressure on us to survive now that food and water are so abundant, at least in first countries. I know, y'all. I used a first word or vocab. I know. It's all right.
It's all right, Kevin.
Don't kill me. They believe that our gaze has moved away from surviving and shifted more inward. We're more concentrated. Oh, what do I wear? How do I sound? How do I present myself? As opposed to what do I need to make my life more successful.
But here's the thing. Here's what's so prevalent about that is that people like these articles, they center it around because that's kind of like a millennial thing, right? But here's the thing. We are exposed. We have social media. These are issues that have been around forever. But because we have the exposure, now it's like an exposed nerve. You know what I mean? It's like an exposed nerve. And so now it's like everybody is talking, a lot of people are talking about it. People are putting their business out there.
Yeah.
But we have been dealing with appearance issues in the workplace or, for a long time, or dealing with, people wondering about our sexuality or, us setting high expectations for ourselves, dealing with familial issues and feeling abandoned and all of that. Like, we've been dealing with that forever. But we've never had the opportunity to be like, yo, this is it. Let's talk about it. I need to talk about this right now.
I'm so glad you said that. So a lot of y'all, this is going to be like 5 seconds, I promise. But this is related. So two things happened this summer. I met my cousin. I have Fulani roots. Go shout out to Mali.
Yes.
I have a beautiful cousin in Paris, and he talked about how he and some of our family suffer from depression, family back home in Mali. And I'm like, man, this stretches all the way back to the continent.
Homeland, yeah.
And I remember my father sitting down having this conversation with me about his struggle with anxiety and depression. And then it just woke me up. This is what I'm struggling with. And this is something that's genetic. It's not just what I'm exposed to, but this is something deeply rooted. And I need to find out what is triggering.
What is the trigger?
What is the trigger for me as they go about finding out what's the trigger for them? I need to find out what's happening for me.
That's okay. So keep going.
Yeah, I need to find out what's happening for me. So what I did, I sat down after I spoke to my cousin, after I spoke to my dad. I looked down in my life. What are the moments in my life that have caused the most stress, and what can I do to release that stress?
Right. So let's talk about solutions.
Solutions.
Yes.
I like solutions.
Solutions. So in news articles that you reviewed, what did they offer any solutions, or did they just talk about it?
Well, they mostly talked about it. So for those who want to go the medicated route, there are medication out there.
There are anti-anxiety medicine.
Anti-anxiety medicine.
I have personally been on anti-anxiety medicine.
I have too, but it made me more anxious because I don't believe I was getting the right dosage. It just made me more like it just boosted. Well, I also suffer from OCD, so I could be remembering medication from that. But I just remember in high school, I just felt more jittery than what I'm used to. So I didn't like that. But what I do now is a more holistic approach.
I do too. Yeah.
So one thing to do is to find a licensed therapist.
Wait, before you continue, we are not saying that you should not try prescription drugs if it is good for you.
If it's just like
if it works for you, I think that personally, like you said, some anti-anxiety medicine can make you jittery, can keep you more anxious. But there are some, if you through trial and error, you can try some that will actually suppress the anxiety.
Right.
So
It's all you have to. Don't listen to us. We're not licensed doctors.
No, we're not.
So
We don't want to take on that role.
right. So go to your doctor and find out what works for you. It's just like with faith or finding your own happiness. You need to find your mode of.
So what's one of your holistic approaches?
I love talking. I love going to.
Does Kevin love talking, you guys?
Yes, he does. I
love listening to my Kevin.
Yes. I love. Thank you, Tiff. I love finding a licensed therapist to talk because I find it's therapeutic. I can lay my feelings out there. It's not suppressed within. And then I find trusted friends who, are non-biased to my struggle, who I can lean on and talk to. Tiffany being one of them. And I have three other friends, three other girlfriends. You guys rock. I'm not going to shout out your names for, privacy issues, but you guys rock. You know who I'm talking about if you're watching this show. I talk it out, and then I also pray and meditate. Prayer and meditation allows me to refocus my mind. I can't explain it, but it's like a spiritual recentering for me.
Yeah, it's a reset.
It's a reset button.
So for me, I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face, but for me personally, I prefer to isolate. I like to take time out to really kind of assess what it is that I'm thinking about, where the trigger is coming from, because there's layers.
Right.
You can say, okay, like me speaking live triggers me because I don't like to be exposed. Well, I had an episode back in 9th grade where I was put, and I was in the spelling bee, and I, said the wrong, spelled the wrong word, and so, you kind of got to go back, and really dissect what it is that may have, where the trigger comes from.
Right.
And it could be, it could be, it could be triggered from an abandonment issue or some kind of rejection. So I like to dissect, but I also like to do things like I like to fake it till I make it. And so what I do is I like putting affirmations around me. Like I like spreading positive energy, right? But I also like putting positive energy around me. So I have put affirmations on sticky notes and put them on my mirror. I would look at them until it just became like I didn't have to look at them. Like I just knew that they were there, and they were kind of, it was like a what do you call it? A security blanket.
Right. I love it.
Yeah. And also, like I said, I like to be still, and I like mindfulness techniques. So like the last time that I was very anxious, I couldn't meditate, I couldn't pray, I couldn't drink any tea that made me feel comfortable. So what I did is that I listened to meditation music, and so that kind of slowly helped me to calm down. But like you said, I like holistic things, but you just have to find what really works for you in order to decompress and figure out and kind of not suppress, but medicate the anxiety that is manifesting within you. So before we go, I wanted to go to our next segment real quick.
Yes.
Real quick.
Yes, real quick.
And the next segment is called For the People, you guys. And so I know that we're kind of like veering off topic, but I just wanted, that we are very supportive of local organizations within the community, and we like to make sure that everyone is involved. And so that's another thing that kind of helps me to decompress and feel good about myself is getting involved with the community. And so, I like to volunteer. As you know, I volunteer for Reading Partners. By the way, they are looking for volunteers. So if you would like to teach a child, if you would like to encourage a child in elementary school on reading comprehension, it's readingpartners.org. Also, I'm a CASA, and that's CASA4DC.org.
Yes.
And also this Saturday, September 7th, this is really cool, at the Prince George's African American Museum and Cultural Center. They are inviting everyone to a pop-up kind of community treasure chest at the Oxon Hill branch library, where you can bring like ordinary miracles like photos, instruments, dolls, art to be featured in a pop-up museum, which is really cool. I've never heard of anything like that. To share your family's history. And so, you know, Kevin loves to talk about his ancestry and history. And go ahead, Kevin.
It's therapeutic. I mean, so one of the things I like to do is recall upon the story of the ancestors, and that also makes me feel better. History makes me feel better. So this is just, it's a beautiful way to teach about your family story, your family strength. So it can become a legacy. That can really help the next generation.
Exactly. Feel good about who you are and where you come from.
Shout out to Nigeria and Mali.
So if you are on Facebook or Instagram, that's at PGAAMCC. That's PGAAMCC. That is Prince George's African American Museum and Cultural Center, and the address is 6200 Oxon Hill Road, Oxon Hill, Maryland, 20745. And that's this Saturday, September 7th, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And shout out to my fellow CASA out in PG, Montre Dupree, for sharing this with me. I hope you guys are able to attend. And if you are, hopefully we'll see you there. And if not, we will see you next week. And we're going to talk some more about anxiety and different issues that, you know, we've gone through and would like to kind of coach you through as well. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like us on Instagram at the Motive Zone, Facebook at the Motive Zone. Share, comment, hit us up and subscribe on our YouTube, the Motive Zone. As you know, we are on Spotify, we're on iHeartRadio, we're on Apple Podcasts, and we're on
YouTube, right?
Stitcher. Yes, Stitcher. And YouTube. So you can see us, the video. But the other apps, it's just going to be vocal. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week at 6.
Love you guys.